I've got Philip on the line, everybody, and we're talking about the language here on the website about this new Infinity block and the concept behind the idea here. I guess, Philip, the best way to say it is that there's a difference between the Hawkins level, right, and the consciousness level of these blocks. And I think the wording is a little, I don't know. It's kind of like for someone who's first time trying to digest the concept of, they're reading about every different product, right? Every different product you're saying has it vibrates at this, right? But then down here, you're talking about, okay, now when you start upgrading, it's stronger than the first. And then it goes from Hawkins levels to quantum consciousness levels.
It's
And
the
then you
same
say,
thing.
this
I
is
need to
not.
interrupt. Sorry, because yeah, it is the
Oh,
absolutely same thing
ooh.
in this wording and on the website currently. That is all the same thing because it is the consciousness level on the Hawkins scale. That's the proper way to say it. But then people use it as a Hawkins level also, and I do that too. So it's interchangeably. It is all the same. Just in the past, at some point, maybe 2 years ago, we actually looked at the actual quantum consciousness levels that a device had. Now, and that's completely different. But we're not talking about this, and I'd hate to bring it up actually right now because then it confuses people again. So we completely eliminated all of that from the website because there was no reference point. Now with the Hawkins scale, people really have a reference point. Even that now gets more difficult because of the 1,000 limit on the Hawkins scale, but we'll get into that. But no, everything on the website right now in terms of consciousness level, Hawkins scale level, it's all the same thing.
Okay, all right. So that's that answer there. There's not two different scales, right? Or are there two different scales?
No, they're
Okay,
not two different scales,
okay,
one scale.
okay. So then the second question is, and this has been coming up with people asking about, okay, well, how is it possible to exceed, let's say I'm just pulled up the scale. Um, like all of a sudden now, you've got Leela products out there that are 1,000 more, 2,000 more than the very top level of like this is what Hawkins came out with, that basically like full consciousness was at 1,000, and now all of a sudden there's products out there that are like way higher than 1,000. So how so you had the really great post in the German group that I reposted in the English group, but could you kind of explain the idea here of how Leela Q has adopted the Hawkins scale of consciousness as a framework, as a benchmark, conceptual benchmark by which to convey the strength of these products, right? But then
Yeah,
how is it possible to go beyond what Hawkins envisioned as the ultimate God level consciousness, right? Because
correct.
you're talking about
Yeah,
in his writings, you're talking about beyond enlightenment, beyond the 12th dimension. So could you explain what you posted in the German group? I think it would be
yes.
helpful
So
for people to understand. Thank you.
I'm glad we're bringing it up, and I'm sort of glad also that this person in that group asked. They basically said, we looked at this Hawkins scale, and it says God level basically at 1,000. Now you're having product that are higher than that. Like, how can anything be higher than God level? And so the answer is nothing can be higher than God level. Nothing ever can be or will be vibrating higher than God level because it's just simply impossible. But and at the same time, Hawkins is and was an absolutely brilliant man with a brilliant mind and very tuned in with amazing work. And we're so glad that he put out this scale. But what happened in the meantime, he's been dead for a while, and at the time when he set all this up, he did not foresee that the energy on Earth, the conscious level on Earth and off Earth, would shift so significantly that completely different levels and vibration levels would be possible here on Earth, for objects to vibrate like that, for humans to vibrate like that. He, for example, when he wrote this book, and people can read it, he would tell people, well, an average human can only increase their consciousness level by like I don't know, like it's a ridiculously low number if we're looking at it from today's perspective, 12 to 25 points or 20 points or something like that. And that would even be a stretch, right? That may have been the case 20, 25 years ago, but it is not at all the case anymore today. And so now we obviously could have run with the Hawkins scale as is and said, okay, we will keep it at the limit of 1,000, but it's just not right. Like we can't do it because it's not right. Everything is stretching out and is constantly vibrating higher and higher levels are possible. So there is no limit anymore up there. And you know, and there really isn't any limit, to be honest. So it is constantly expanding. And that is the reason why also our products can calibrate way higher. Now they calibrate extremely high, so obviously they're still in this huge upper zone, right? If you were to continually upgrade the Hawkins scale basically and say, okay, so what levels do we see now? You know, where's sort of like um, a, a limit type line? You know, where would the products vibrate? Yeah, very, very, very high. But that is pretty much the case. And a human nowadays, you know, can upgrade their own consciousness level by vast numbers, absolutely vast numbers. And I think that that's a pretty good message. But really, it's outdated. The Hawkins scale with a limit of 1,000 is outdated, and people that say, well, yeah, but you can't change it. Like, yeah, you actually have to change it. Otherwise, you're living a concept, or you're sticking to some old concept, and that has never served anyone, right? Because those are just rigid concepts that if they don't apply anymore, you need to adjust them. And if you keep living by them, you're living in the old world and you're not looking at the reality as is. And Hawkins, I'm certain because of his amazing work and how tuned in he was, he would write a Power versus Book, you know, version 2 now, if he was still alive. So my end of the post was, you know, maybe someone will write that and maybe we will have to write it. And I'm sure that there will be some people out there that are like, you know, the hardcore Hawkins followers that will be like, wow, yeah, you can't do that. You can't be higher than 1,000 on the Hawkins scale. Guess what? Yes, you can. And he himself, I'm pretty certain, you know, would say the same thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me because I've been trying to convey the same concept by posting that, you know, there's really no numbers. Numbers don't exist in nature, right? Yes, you've got the Fibonacci sequence, you've got the golden mean, you know, you've got these incredible, um, you know, these things that, you know, whatever designed the universe, right? Put in some really secret codes in there. You got these biogeometry stuff, and there's some really interesting sacred stuff in nature, but they're not numbers; they're just concepts. And I think that if I were to just take all these numbers away, I think it would still hold true that there is a path to enlightenment. But there's just you can't assign a number to it. And if you've done any deep inner work, you know people know that there are no numbers to this. You just transcend to the next level depending on you and your you know your life and everything that's going on. So yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I hope that explains it to everybody. I know people are really number oriented. I think that's just because our brains, right? I mean, it literally is a human brain thing to try to put structure to everything you're perceiving, especially through your eyes and your ears, and you want to structure it and you want to put it into context. But consciousness isn't that. Consciousness is a whole nother thing, and there is no number or numerical scale for it. So are you seeing now with the other healers that you know we're entering this age, right, where you know it's just every consciousness is expanding and everything is lifting up. I think you've mentioned that to me before, where you were saying that, you know, we've kind of just where the planet is in the cosmos and just our vibration, you know, overall as a species and the planet itself is vibrating. I know that even the Schumann resonance, I don't know if you knew this, right? But from a bioelectrical standpoint, the Schumann resonance is also changing and it's also going up. So the earth is vibrating at a different frequency now. So I think that's
Yes.
really an amazing thing that, yeah, we're really evolving. And yeah, there's no limit now. The 1000 is not the limit, and the limit is infinity, I think, right?
Yeah.
Infinite. Yeah,
That
infinite.
that is true, and it is true because God is infinite. And
Yeah.
so and you know, God is sometimes the wrong word to use because it's
Yeah.
been misused so much in religions or
Yep.
and by religions. So to me, God doesn't mean any of that has these attachments. So you could also say the super consciousness or whatever you feel. I'll call it just the universe, but not certainly not just the physical, right? It's really the universe of everything. And that has no beginning and it has no end. It literally is infinite. And that is so hard to understand with the brain because it's such a paradox to everything that has a limit that we experience in this reality. But that is really it. And and to me, what it really shows, it nails here, is that we're coming out of the so-called Kali Yuga that a lot of people probably have heard of. It's this huge age basically of density of quote unquote darkness, of forgetting who we really are, and just living in a very dense, non-transparent, non-connected world. And we're moving into a much lighter and brighter age at the moment, and we're moving there, and it's accelerating in speed. So we are getting connected more and more with our true essence, right? We suddenly have these tools available. There's lots of other things that are happening, and really you see the consciousness coming out in a completely different way again. And I think when Earth shifted so significantly, which was about like probably 10, 15 years ago, that's where it really started to get boosted. And at this point, we can only always look every day new and see what's new, what can we do, and also we are challenged at Leela Q here, with these things. Like, when had you asked me a year ago if we could or would launch an infinity block with 3,800 on the Hawkins scale, I would have said no. I mean, I would probably have said, never say never, but I just don't see it. And that sometimes is really the case. You don't see it, but then you're proven wrong. You just need to constantly go with the flow. Now we've drifted away from the core topic a little bit, but I find it important because we all need to do that constantly. We need to just look at everything from a fresh perspective in a new way and make sure everything old, can we allow that to be reevaluated and let go of old concepts and just look at things how they are today. And for everyone, that's a challenge, frankly, because we're very comfortable in living in old structures and concepts, like everyone is. It's part of the human, I think, experience, and especially from how we've learned to grow up. All of us as children, we learn concepts and structure and all of that, and to break free from that, I think is a challenge that everyone has, and me included.
No, yeah, no, me too. Me too. Yeah, so everybody, and I know you guys a lot of you are fixated on numbers, but rest assured, um, the framework is there. The numbers are no longer quite relevant. Hawkins would probably agree. And maybe, Philip, if you ever had the time, I would love to read your book, the the von Holtzendorff levels of consciousness, part two. All right. Well, thank you very much for that answer. And so that concludes this little quick video to kind of address that topic. So mahalo. Thanks, Philip.
Thank you.